You'll never believe this. My parents looked me straight in the eye and said they were broke, while my husband lay in the hospital fighting for his life. Those words still burn in my chest. I was desperate, holding on to hope that the people who raised me would help when everything was falling apart. My husband's surgery bill was sky high, and I couldn't cover it alone. My hands shook as I called my parents, explaining the urgency. I begged them for help, certain they would step up when I needed them most. But their reply hit me harder than any storm. They sighed and said times were tough, that they had nothing to give. Their voices carried sympathy, but their eyes told a different story. I hung up that call shattered, but still clinging to trust. Later, I discovered the truth. They weren't broke at all. Instead of saving a life, they were spending thousands on vacations, jewelry, and fancy dinners. The money my husband needed was wasted on their comfort. In that moment, my world cracked. They didn't just lie, they chose luxury over family. The pain of knowing my husband's health meant less than their pleasures is something I can never forget. You think your parents would always be your safety net, right? But mine proved me wrong in the most heartbreaking way. That day, as I sat outside the hospital waiting room, I dialed my parents with trembling fingers. My husband's surgery costs were piling up, and I was running out of options. I told them everything, the urgency, the bills, the fear that time was slipping away. My voice cracked as I asked for help, not as a daughter demanding, but as someone clinging to hope. They sighed heavily and told me they were broke, that they had nothing left. They painted a picture of empty wallets and hard times. My chest tightened, but I believed them. I had no reason to think otherwise. Days later, I found out the truth. They weren't broke at all. They had just dropped $50,000 on a brand new luxury car. The same amount my husband needed for his surgery, gone just like that. I sat there staring at the receipt and photos of their shiny purchase, my heart in pieces. It wasn't about money anymore, it was about betrayal. The people who should have stood by me when life was crumbling chose pride and appearances instead. You'll never forget the moment when your world is crashing down and the people you trusted most are nowhere to be found. That's how it felt when my husband was in desperate need of surgery, and I thought my parents would be there to help. When I called them, they acted worried. Their voices carried fake concern as they asked how I was holding up. For a moment, I felt relief they cared, or at least that's what I thought. Then came the crushing words. They told me they were struggling financially, that they had no money to spare. They said times were hard, and they couldn't help with the surgery cost. My heart sank, but I swallowed my pain and accepted their answer, believing they had no choice. But the truth hit me like a storm. Just a week later, I saw pictures on social media, my parents vacationing abroad, smiling in luxury hotels, dining in fancy restaurants. The money I begged for was spent on their pleasure. That's when it became clear. Their lies weren't about survival, they were about selfishness. They chose comfort and image over their own daughter's cries for help. And that betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Imagine running to the very people who raised you, begging for help, only to realize they care more about appearances than your pain. That was my reality when my husband's surgery became urgent, and I turned to my parents. When I asked for their support, they didn't even pause to think about my husband's life. Instead, they whispered about what others in the community might say. They were worried that if people knew they gave me money, others would expect the same. To them, saving face mattered more than saving a life. They told me they couldn't risk embarrassment. They made it sound like helping me would ruin their dignity, like it would stain their reputation. Their words didn't just sting, they shattered me. How could they value gossip over their own child's desperate need? Soon, I learned the full truth. They weren't broke. They had spent thousands hosting lavish dinners, funding parties, and showing off wealth to people who didn't even truly care about them. All that money could have saved my husband's life, but they chose to protect their image instead. That day, I realized something heartbreaking. Sometimes the people you trust most will choose their pride over your survival. And once that happens, nothing ever feels the same again. Can you imagine standing in a hospital hallway praying for your husband's life while realizing your parents aren't broke? They're on vacation with your money. That's the truth that hit me like a storm. When I begged them for help with my husband's surgery, they claimed they had nothing left. They spoke with shaky voices, as if every dollar had already vanished. I felt guilty even asking, like maybe I was putting too much weight on their shoulders. But soon after, pictures surfaced. Bright smiles, sunny beaches, expensive resorts. The very people who told me they couldn't help were sipping cocktails and wearing designer clothes. And the worst part, they used the exact $50,000 I thought they had given up to save for emergencies. It wasn't just money, it was betrayal. Every photo of them laughing felt like a knife. My husband was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for his life, while my parents lived like royalty. They didn't just deny me help, they turned their backs on us in the coldest way possible. That was the day I understood the depth of their selfishness. Family isn't about words, it's about action. And when the time came to prove their love, they chose comfort over compassion, leaving me to pick